Welcome to the Miss to Mrs. broadcast, where we encourage wives, newlyweds, and singles on the transition into marriage and about wife life. I hope you enjoy the show. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Miss to Mrs. broadcast. I am so excited about this series in my podcasting because I am talking to singles. And we have titled it, or I have titled it, Letters to My Single Self. And the subtopic today is going to be Things I Gained from My Single Season Part 1, the single myths and lies that I believed. So I have a really great friend that is coming on with me today. Her name is Angela Mays, better known as Angie, and I have known her for a while. We went to church together in Virginia, and I had the blessing to come across her gift. She is a gifted just person in general, and I loved her gift of teaching, and she is just a powerful, wonderful single, and I wanted her to come on and share her voice.
I'm excited. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for taking out your time. So we're not going to pause. We're going to get right into it. I want to know, what is the most valuable thing that you have gained from your singleness?
Whew, that is a loaded question.
It is.
For me, it's kind of funny because just being 100%, like, I think for me, the one thing that I've learned is like independence as a woman, but dependence on God, and this delicate balance of those things, right? Yeah. So like I've learned that I can do it. I can function as one person and just kind of just leading my household, if you will.
Yeah.
But in that same breath, realizing the importance of being dependent on Jesus and really allowing him to be my best friend and my confidant and my husband and all of those things that maybe a partner would be for you. I was going to say he becomes, but he really is and wants to be. It's not even like I discovered some secret sauce. Like Jesus really wants to be those things for you. And so just finding that there's a sweetness and being really dependent on him, but that dependence on him causes you to really become a strong, independent woman, which it's ironic because I think that's what society really says, like, go be this strong, independent woman, and you really won't get there unless you have a foundation. And so for me, I think my singleness has really taught me the value of starting with the foundation of dependence on Christ. And that's where your independence comes from. And that's been powerful.
So I love everything that you just said there. If you guys heard in there, there's a beautiful symmetry of, dependence, of leaning on God while also being an independent woman. Now, what I want you to do in there, you said God can be your husband. So for some people, that sounds like, what? God can be your husband. Give me a little bit of an explanation of what that looks like for a single woman, because, sometimes people say that as cliche, like, right? But I want you to kind of make it plain to someone who's like, well, how can that happen?
So I start thinking about what are things that women naturally want and need in a relationship, right? I think and I know that there's some things that are just every woman wants, but I think there are certain things that women distinctly want for themselves, that they're like, I feel valued or I feel treasured when this happens in a relationship. For me, it's security, right? That is my big thing. If you can make me feel secure and provided for, it's like A+. And so for me, that's an area where God has really shown me, I am your provider. There's security in me. So something as small as last week, there was an issue with my car, right? And I am not a car girl. I am that girl that will like avoid the gas station. Like, I'll know he's the one because he's going to want to like pump my gas. You know what I mean? Like, and then it's like, okay, clearly you're who God has for me. But I know nothing about cars. And so my car started having issues on a Sunday. Nothing is open on a Sunday. There's no dealership that's taking people in, to get their cars fixed. So I literally was like, Lord, I don't know what to do. And God just really worked it out, because I'm from Charlotte, and where I live in Charlotte's a really funny city, because
Mhm.
it's divided in like 4 quadrants. And I am in the northern part of Charlotte. I have a ton of friends that live in the southern part of Charlotte. And that's only a big deal because that's a 30-minute drive. My
Yeah.
job is in the southern part of Charlotte. But
Mm.
God just provided. I mean, I had people that drove 30 minutes to my house to bring me to work. I took the train one day to get to one end of Charlotte to the other. I had a friend that was like, hey, I'll pick you up from the train station. I'll take you to get your car where it needs to go. I get to the dealership. I didn't even know my car was under warranty. Didn't know. So this massive issue I paid
Wow.
nothing for. And some people might look at that as like, well, that was just good friends and coincidence. But I don't believe in coincidence as a believer. And
Right.
good friends come from the Lord, honestly.
Yes.
Right. So all of those things, it literally was like God just provided. I didn't miss one day of work. I actually was getting to work earlier than when I drive myself,
Yes.
which is kind of funny. So I didn't miss a day of work. I didn't have to pay,
Mm.
right, for my car to get fixed. The car got fixed. Just, and those are all the things that you look at a relationship and it's like, oh, somebody to pay my bills. Well, I didn't have to pay a bill. How do I get to work? Who's going to help me? Well, provision happened. The Lord sent people to help me get to work. So in that, God, maybe I didn't have a physical man there, but
Yes.
God took care of me in that
Yes.
moment, you know?
Yes.
So for me, that's more of a practical place
And
of the
that's
Lord has been
actually
a husband.
that's very good, because those are lessons that you have to actually transition into marriage, because
Mhm.
even though you have a physical person there are going to be moments where you have to tap into, okay, well, he's not able to do this.
Yeah,
What if he gets sick? What if something happens to him?
yeah,
Then what do you do?
yeah,
Still have built that relationship with the Lord where you still can depend on him in those practical ways. That
yeah,
is so good, and actually such great wisdom and such a great
yeah,
explanation for when you say that. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Angie.
yeah, no
All
worries.
right. So, next question. What's one of the biggest lessons you've learned from your single season, in your single season? What would you say?
Um, so I think definitely, like I said, the dependence on Christ and
Mhm.
what that really looks like.
Okay.
Um, so I've kind of spoken to that, so I won't elaborate on that again, but just really what that looks like. I think that there was a time in my earlier years where I would have said like, oh, I'm dependent on Christ, but there was nothing really to test that. And so I
Yeah.
think in this season of like, I'm 38, so I didn't think I would be single this long, but
Right.
because I have, there's been lots of opportunities for me to really test. Well, I'm gonna say it, to test God, to put him at his word, to say like,
Mhm.
your word said this and this is happening, what now? And God
Right.
is always like, bet, I got you, I'm always gonna show up. Right. So that's one lesson. And then I would say the other lesson is that I think I used to really believe that singleness really was a curse. Like
Yeah.
there was something wrong with me
Right.
that I was single, and
Yeah.
that this was like this punishment, and that
Mhm.
marriage was like the reward
Mm.
of going through the drudgery of
Ooh.
singleness.
Okay.
And that is such a lie of the enemy. That's
Yes.
such a lie.
Mhm.
Um, and I really, I think that that's something that I think every single thinks that at some point. I do believe
Mhm.
that most of the time you will reach a point where you start realizing like that
Yeah.
is a lie of the enemy. But
Yeah.
I want for whoever is listening to really quickly understand that that's
Mhm.
really a lie of the enemy. And I think that when you believe that singleness is a drudgery and it's a punishment, you waste really precious years. I think if I
Ooh.
had a big regret of my singleness is that there are certain things that I'm walking in now that I really wish I would have walked in much earlier in my single years.
Mhm.
Because I think I would have been so much further along. And when I say that, I don't say that in a shaming way, but I
Yeah.
think there's just things spiritually that, man, I wish I could have done at 25.
Yeah.
Because now, at 38, it's like you look back and you're like, man, if I had started this at 25,
Yeah.
where would I be? What could I have accomplished? How
Yeah.
many souls could have been saved? Like,
Yeah.
and again, not talking myself up, but just
Yeah.
kind of now seeing like you had time
Yeah.
to do and pursue certain things. How
Mm.
much further could you have gone with those things if you hadn't been spending so much time thinking like, oh, this is a curse.
Yeah. That's such great wisdom, guys. And I attribute a lot of my actual joy in my marriage to my single season.
Yeah.
I think I learned so much that I was able to bring into marriage that, you know, it's funny in marriage you do have to be a whole person and you can't lean so heavily into your partner being your everything.
Yeah.
And so those are skills that you acquire in your singleness that are just so valuable to marriage. So that's good. Take notes, guys, that it is not a curse. It is a season of just development, growth, and
Yeah.
strength, power. There's so many verbs I could use, but that's why we're talking about it. So, what do you suggest, or how would you counsel someone that says, "What do I do on my emotional days as a single?"
Oh gosh. So I wish that I could offer some like deeply spiritual testimony where I never have emotional days. And
Right. That's
whenever I'm having an emotional day, I just go and I lay at the feet of Christ and
right.
it's all better. I don't. Like, I don't. So I'm just, if we could be 100, I'm just gonna
100.
tell you like that is also a loaded question because
Yeah.
I think like that's been a journey,
Yeah.
like to be at
Mhm.
a place where you have these emotional days where you do feel lonely. Like
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell any single person that you don't have these days where you feel
Mhm.
super lonely and it's
Yeah.
just like, God, I am watching everyone around me. I think the day Cardi B got married, I started really questioning my whole life. Like, how like just explain it to me, right? So like to say that I handle my emotional days well is not true. But I'll say
Okay.
some things about my emotional days that just being honest, but it's been helpful for me. So
Okay.
I think the first one is I talk to someone about
Mm,
it. Typically
okay.
I'll call my mom, I'll call I've been blessed with some really great single girlfriends.
That's great.
And I'm gonna, well, no, I was gonna say I want to put a pin in that, but actually I'll address that now. So when I say call someone, it is really critical that as a single, you filter the people that you are surrounding yourself
Mm.
with. And
Ooh,
here's what I mean, because I think I grew up in the church and I always heard, iron sharpens iron. You don't want to be around people that are going to lead you astray. Yes, that is all true and that is all great. But you also don't want people that are not going to push you
mm,
out of whatever negative emotion you have. My pastor always says it's okay to have a pity party, but do not invite people to the party and don't stay there
mm,
long. So
mm,
you don't want other single women in your life that when you're having those emotional days, their response is, I know it sucks. It's so hard. What are
mm,
we going to do? And they jump in and they join that pity party with
mm.
you.
Good.
I have single women in my life that when I go to them and I say I'm having an emotional single day, their response 100% of the time is, well, what are you going to do? Because you
Mm,
can't stay here. So what
mm,
is it that you need to hear that's going to push you out of this? And that is really important. And I'm going to also push singles. You don't get friends like that by just allowing yourself to be around whatever singles are around you. You have
mm,
to really be strategic in the people that you let in your inner circle. So
mm,
I looked for women
mm,
that would say to me, you can't stay here. If
mm,
you were a person in my life that was allowing me to stay there and you were jumping in with me, I purposely decided that you cannot be a part of my inner circle. We can be acquaintances, we can be cool, but you cannot be a part of my inner circle. So I think the first thing is call somebody, but check your call list, right?
Yeah.
So maybe I should have said that first. Really look at who you're surrounding yourself with, who's really feeding into your spirit. Our church uses a term love shove. Who's love shoving you to go higher, right? Because again, have your pity party, but don't invite people and don't stay there long. I think the other thing is those down days are a really great way to do some self-reflection and some self-discovery. So for me, I am not opposed to distraction. I think distractions can be really good if they're positive distractions.
Yeah.
You know, and so I started really thinking about what do I enjoy? Because the reality is I do have the time to do it. So I know for me this summer, I took up paddleboarding. It's something that I really enjoy. I'm blessed that I live in a city that there are a million, we don't have a beach, but we have a million rivers and lakes that are in our city. So there's a million places I can go to put my paddleboard in. And so I take a book with me. I get my paddleboard. I've done it in the middle of a work day if I could get away. I've done it just in the middle of the day during the summer. There is no one here to say, hey, I need dinner ready. So I'm taking advantage of those times, right? Where I'm going to go on my paddleboard and just have a great time. So I think it's a matter of discover something that you like. And when you're in a down place, go do the thing. And if you don't know what you like, if you're kind of somebody that's like, well, I don't know what I like, use that downtime to figure out what you like, right? Taking it to the feet of Jesus. I said that kind of like, haha, I do it all the time sarcastically, right? But I want to do better at actually going to Christ with those things because he wants to take that burden. Jesus gets it. Like he's not afraid. God is not afraid of you throwing a tantrum. Is he going to let you stay there? No. But if you come to Christ and you've thrown an all-out tantrum, or you're there and it's like, God, we got beef. I'm pissed right now. I'm mad. God can handle that. I have a friend that she says all the time, and I love it. God's not intimidated by your emotions.
Right.
You're allowed to be emotional. You're allowed to be upset. You're allowed to lose it. You're allowed to have moments where you may have to go back to the Lord and say, you know what, when I said that, my bad. I should not have said that. But you're allowed to have those emotions. So go to God on those down days. He's waiting. Most of the time, he's waiting for you to be real anyways, because you probably, I would say more than likely, if you're having an emotional day, that was building up anyways, which is why you're having an emotional day.
Right.
So he probably was waiting for you to come to him all along and just be real and say, I'm not happy with you right now. I don't want to be single. So say it. Go to him with that. And then I think the last thing, and this is a new thing for me, I am discovering that typically when something is happening to you that is emotionally raw and hard, it's really not about you. And it's probably a self-check that somebody else is dealing with what you're going through. And you might need to start doing some check-ins. I have found 98% of the time, there has literally been a 2% time, 98% of the time when I'm struggling with my single journey, and it is a journey because you will reach the destination, right? So when I'm struggling in this journey, I will call a friend like maybe a day or two later, we'll start talking, and that friend will say, Tuesday, I was really struggling with my single. It happens all the time. Like I'm giving the 2% for the leeway that maybe
hear that.
But 98% of the time, someone was struggling right where they're with me, and they didn't call anybody either. They just sat and struggled. They didn't go and do something fun. They didn't go to God. They just sat and struggled. So I am trying, and again, I'm not perfect at it, but I'm trying to get into the habit of, if I'm feeling something negative, now I'm going to have to start thinking by the spirit and not by my negative emotion. So I'm feeling this negative emotion. Why am I feeling it? Is it a negative emotion, which again, I want to emphasize we all have, or is it the Holy Spirit maybe trying to get my attention that
Yeah.
somebody else is feeling that negative emotion? And here's an opportunity for a prophetic moment. Do
Yeah.
I need to stop and intercede for someone? Do I
Mm,
need to get quiet and maybe not pray for myself? Maybe
yeah.
I need to get quiet and say, Lord, is there somebody out there? Is there some sister? Is there some brother that they're struggling with something right now? And maybe I just need to stop and ask, like, who would you want me to pray for in this moment?
Wow.
Is it a moment where God is like, I really just need you to get quiet because there's some intercession that's about to really take place and I'm using you. And that's why I've allowed this emotion. I am not perfect at that, but I'm starting to see
Yeah.
a pattern where
Yeah.
it's like, man, I talked to my single friends and it was like, oh, we were all struggling. So
Yeah.
maybe taking that mind off of myself and starting to think, using this as an opportunity to think more kingdom minded.
This is so good. You said about five nuggets. I mean, you talked about self reflection, you talked about the proper inner circle, you spoke about even what you're going through as a single by yourself. Could be a moment where God is saying somebody else is going through that very thing and hear me to know it, what I want you to do with that emotion. Wow, you guys, you're going to have to go back and listen to this because it was a lot that she said right there. And that was so wise. And it actually gives me a look and a picture into your heart because it lets me know that even though I'm married with children and I'm maybe dealing with, the weight and understanding of how to parent and how to, connect with my husband, there's still women out there without any of those things that are still dealing with the weight of how do I do this and how do I handle this, and then being able to minister to other people with who are going through stuff. I think some people think, well, when I'm married, then I can minister to more issues. But the reality is there are some people who don't have husbands and children who
Yeah,
need ministry too.
yeah, absolutely.
A voice and to speak to them, to pray for them, to help them through that moment. That was so good. Oh my goodness. That was a lot. Very good, very good. I want you to share something to the singles as we kind of wrap up what we're talking about. Share a positive new script that you can give to all singles who are listening to this podcast. So, it may have been a negative script. What's a positive script or something that they can have as a strong takeaway from everything that you've said?
You are responsible for making your life bomb. You
Yes.
are responsible for making it dope. It's
Mm,
up to you.
mm,
Um, I think that sometimes there's a lot of church culture lingo that I think
mm.
sometimes it's good intentions, but it can throw singles off. And like
Yeah.
one that I kind of don't really like is that you're in the waiting, because I
Mm,
think sometimes it puts singles in this mindset that they're like that is what their life is. It's in this place of like
mm.
waiting.
Go ahead and bop us upside the head. Come on.
I mean, you know what I mean? Like, because I think because waiting is good and waiting is beautiful.
Yes.
And sometimes you are in seasons of waiting. So I do want to clarify that. But I
Yeah.
just think that idea of like your singleness is your season of waiting. No, your
Mhm.
singleness is your season of adventure. It is
Woo.
your season of just adventure and figuring out, what do you want? What do you want out of your life? What do you desire? What are you seeking God? If you are somebody that is actively seeking God, he's placing desires in your heart. um
Mm,
so I think, kind of, this might be a slight rabbit trail, but I think a clear sign of somebody that probably is not seeking the Lord is somebody that's like, I don't know what I want. Like, you really
mm,
might need to seek God, because he promises that if you seek him and put him first, he's going to give you the desires of your heart.
mm.
And that word give is referring to, he's literally going to give you desires,
Yeah.
right? So there's an adventure in your singleness, because you get to spend time with the Lord. He's going to give you desires, go seek those desires. What
Yeah.
do you
Come
enjoy?
on.
I think my life motto has become, I am going to get the most out of this life. I
Yeah.
want everything. And when I say that, I don't mean that in a greedy way, but I want to, what do I enjoy? What do I
Yeah.
love? What are things that I desire? What things do I want to
Thank
seek
you, Lord.
after? You know what I mean?
Thank you,
Go
Lord.
do it. I have
Thank
a friend right now, and she's always wanted to drive across country. She's a
you.
single girl. She packed her stuff up last Sunday and she's driving across country because she can and she wants to do it. So
Yes.
go do it. I like this summer, I have discovered so many things that I didn't know about myself. I am an outdoor chick. Can you believe that? I'm an
Oh my
outdoor chick.
gosh,
I
I
just
love
discovered it like last month, but it's been so fun. I joined a hiking group because I can. I took up paddleboarding because I can. I'm getting ready to take a trip to Texas with some friends because I can. So
it.
I think my advice to singles is, do not sit in your house moping about being single. Start seeking God and finding out what desires do you have, and then go after those desires. I think also, and one last bit of advice is, in the, again, where I don't like the word in the waiting, don't, I want singles to not be afraid to do something. And this, I feel, is a little bit more geared towards women. I don't want to judge,
Yeah.
but I don't think men necessarily struggle with this
Yeah.
aspect. Don't wait on a man
Mm-hmm.
to pursue things that you want to do. And
Yeah.
here's what I mean. I do not mean a culture where you don't need a man, right? Like,
Right.
that's a whole
That's
nother topic
different.
for another time, but
Yes.
that is not, that's a lie. God created you to need him. So stop
Right.
saying that. But what I will say is, if there are certain things that really are on your heart to do, pursue them, and allow the Lord to speak to you, because there's certain things we'll pursue that God's like, no, don't do that. But
Mm-hmm.
I'll give a practical example. I kind of had this mentality that I could never buy a house unless I was married, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then I started really wanting a house because I just don't like living in an apartment. It's small and I don't want to hear my neighbors. And so
Right.
but I was staying in this apartment life because I thought, like, well, I need a husband to do that. You
Yeah.
don't need a husband to buy a house.
Yeah.
Just go buy the house and allow the Lord. Now, was I leaning on the Lord through the whole process? Did I seek wisdom from people that had bought homes before me?
Mm-hmm.
110%. I did. But right now, I'm living in my home that I bought, excuse me, that I pay the mortgage, and I am not married. So
Yeah.
that's what I mean when I say, like, don't have a mentality that if there's things you want to do, you don't have to wait for a husband to do those things. You want to go to Europe, you don't have to go to Europe on your honeymoon. Go to
Mhm.
Europe. So I want to encourage singles, it's your life. Make
Yeah.
something amazing out of it.
I tell you, my heart is leaping. At one point, I like was driven to tears just because that's really what I want singles to get from this, is that you have such an adventurous life and there's so many things to gain from the season that you're in. And yes, I know we have desires for things that we want, but it's still a beauty in your now. So I'm just so thankful for this interview. And I pray that people listen and listen again and that you are super encouraged. But before we go, I'm going to do a quick round robin called Blind Date, which
Okay.
is I'm just going to ask a couple quick questions of Angie just to get to know her. So what would you say are your best qualities?
Ooh, okay. Oh. um, I think I'm pretty honest. My
Yeah.
friends, I think, would say, like, I'm a straight shooter. I'm pretty honest. I am not shy. I'm really outgoing, and I like,
Okay.
that's something I actually really like about myself, because I think, like, I
Yes.
can make a friend anywhere. Like, definitely. And I think I love hard. Like, when you become somebody that's like a friend to me, you become family, and
Yes.
I do. I love hard.
Ah, I love that. Okay, next question. Are you a morning person or a night owl?
I think I am neither. I have to go to bed at a certain time, and I don't really like getting up in the morning.
Oh, well,
So I
that's
am a day person, but
that is so funny. Okay, 2 more questions. What's the last book you read, and did you enjoy it?
I'm really ashamed of the last book that I read, and I'm really like, oh God, I feel like no one's gonna believe I'm saved after I say this. So I started watching on Netflix the Bridgerton,
Oh,
right?
girl. Okay.
So I started reading the series because I just wanted to know what the
Good.
books were like. And there's such like I feel like
I lost ya. Did you put me on mute? I don't know. Oops, I lost your. Ooh. Hello?
did you lose
Oh,
me?
now I have you again. Hello?
Your face went like, ah.
Yes. But anyhow, I love that. Enjoy your books. Books are
I just feel like I don't know. I feel like that's probably a contradiction to everything I just said.
no, it's
But
not.
there's such like, this.
Enjoy your books. I love it. Keep reading, learning, being an amazing teacher. I am so thankful that you were on here with me today. I pray that somebody got a great nugget from today's podcast. Subscribe to the Miss to Mrs. broadcast. You can find it on
Yes.
YouTube and you can see it on Spotify as well. So thank you, Angie, and we will see more of you in the future.
Thanks, guys.
All right, bye. Okay.